Now, if ever there was a rock band that refused to sit neatly inside a box, then it was the Sensational Alex Harvey Band. From their earliest recordings in the 1970s to their final outings before collapsing under the weight of their own chaotic brilliance, SAHB made music that was equal parts theatre, blues, hard rock, and real pure madness. Now, to revisit their albums is to step into a strange carnival, one where vaudeville clowns collide with proto-punk sneer, where big riffs rub shoulders with cabaret tunes, and where Alex Harvey himself presides as the ringmaster of it all. So let's walk through the discography, album by album. Now, the debut album, called Frame, was released in 1972, and it really sounds like a band being born in the middle of a riot. Alex Harvey had already been around the block. He'd fronted the Blues Council, dabbling in musicals, even releasing solo records, but here he finally found a group who could really match his theatrical eccentricities with musical muscle. The title track was a reworking of an old R&B standard. Harvey himself barking out lines like a man who's both on trial and conducting the trial at the same time. Takes some doing, that does. But what is fascinating is just how much of Harvey's past bleeds into the record. Hammer Song and Midnight Moses, these were borrowed from his earlier solo work and are transformed into swaggering juggernauts thanks to Zal Clemenson's serrated guitar tones and the rock-solid McKenna rhythm sections. But the centrepiece was Isabel Gaudi. A three-part suite about a 17th century witch, which was about as far from the glam-rock mainstream world as one could get in 1972. And the production is quite rough and ready, but that's part of its appeal. This is music made to shock, amuse and bewilder in equal measure. Framed was not yet the fully sensational band, but really the template that was set. High drama, hard riffs, and stories that sounded like they belonged on stage as much as in a jukebox. Now, if Framed was the blueprint, then next, from 1973, is the real unveiling of this SAHB machine. It's one of their most cohesive albums, and in many ways, perhaps their masterpiece. The record kicks off with Swamp Snake, all sleazy groove and dirty riffs. Before tumbling headfirst into the magnificent gangbang. A tune as ludicrous as its title. And then comes The Faith Healer. A few songs in 1970s rock built tension quite like this one. There's an ominous, hypnotic pulse that grew steadily more intense until Harvey enters like some unholy preacher who was offering a salvation with a wink and a sneer. The band had found their secret weapon. Repetition as ritual, rock as a séance. But they didn't stop there. Next also includes The Last of the Teenage Idols. This was a sprawling multi-part suite that lets Harvey indulge every ounce of his theatricality, complete with character voices, tempo shifts, and narrative drama. It's the kind of track that really either makes you a lifelong devotee or sends you running for the exit, which is very much the point. Now, where Frame sounded like a gang of street punks learning to play together, Next sounded like a circus act, finally perfecting its routine. Wild, funny, and unexpectedly moving. Now, by the time The Impossible Dream arrived, SAHB had begun to infiltrate the mainstream. There was the first real commercial success, but they achieved it without watering down the madness. In fact, it was this album that really might be their most musically adventurous. You can hear it right from the opening bars of Hot City Symphony. This one sprawls across two parts, blending rock power with brass flourishes and theatrical grandstanding. Harvey is in full command here. He moves effortlessly from snarling street corner prophet to tender storyteller, while the band stretches themselves into directions no one could have predicted. Sergeant Fury is a menacing and paranoid track. My regards to Sergeant Fury. Anthem is surprisingly heartfelt, almost uplifting. The production here is much crisper. The songs are more carefully structured, but nothing feels tamed. Some critics found the record a little uneven, and it does occasionally wander into overambition, but isn't that the point? The impossible dream dares you to laugh, gasp, and scratch your head, all within the span of 40 minutes. It's the sound of a band that knew exactly who they are, but refused to stand still. Now, if there's one album where SAHB managed to balance accessibility with their trademark eccentricity, it's Tomorrow Belongs to Me from 1975. This charted in the UK top 10. It became their biggest studio success, and for good reason as well. At the heart of the record is this title track, borrowed from the musical Cabaret. Now, in most hands, that song is a chilling evocation of creeping fascism. But in Harvey's hands, it becomes something stranger. Half mocking, half reverent, a musical hall of mirrors. But elsewhere, the band delivered some of their finest cuts. Give My Compliments to the Chef is quintessential SAHB, a blues rock strut that suddenly veers into melodrama. Give my compliments to the chef. Then there's Snakebite, oozing with menace. Snakebite, she gave me a snakebite. While Shake That Thing swings with irresistible abandon. But the real epic here is the tale of the giant stone eater. This was an environmental allegory that really imagined machines consuming the land in apocalyptic fashion.
Hear this, the tale of the giant stone eater.
Now, it is absurd, but it's brilliant in equal measure. What made this record work so well is its consistency. The production yet again polished, the playing was tight, yet the unpredictability remained intact. You can dance to it, you can laugh at it, or you can sit in awe of its audacity. For once, the mainstream came to SAHB rather than the other way around. And just when you think you've got them figured out, SAHB released the Penthouse tapes, which was released in 1976. This was an album that was essentially a collection of covers with only 3 originals sprinkled in. It could have been a disaster, but in true Sensational Alex Harvey Band fashion, it's an oddball delight. Who else in the mid-70s would dare to cover both Alice Cooper's School's Out and Irving Berlin's Cheek to Cheek on the same record? When we're out together, dancing cheek to cheek. You heard me. The band tears through the Osmonds' Crazy Horses. With such unhinged glee that it feels like the song was written for them all along. Meanwhile, their take on Jethro Tull's love story turns the folky original into something much rougher and more carnivalesque. To my heart in time to see if my love comes around. Of the originals, I Want to Have You Back, Jungle Jenny and Say You Mine are really solid, if somewhat overshadowed by the sheer oddity of the covers. Critics were divided. You would expect them to be with a release like this. Some saw it as a throwaway stopgap. Others admired the sheer cheek of it all. But either way, it's proof that Harvey and company never treated the rock album as sacred. For them, it was just another stage to perform on, whether they were borrowing someone else's material or mocking it from the inside. Now, later that same year, SAHB roared back with SAHB Stories, and this time they were in no mood to mess about. This album gave them one of their biggest hits, Boston Tea Party.
Hey, going to the party, going to the Boston Tea Party.
A song that remains a staple of classic rock radio. It even garnished a Top of the Pops performance. It's everything great about the band's distilled into 4 minutes. Punchy, funny, theatrical, and endlessly replayable. The rest of the album is just as engaging. Amos Moses, originally by Jerry Reed, becoming a swampy, swaggering beast in Harvey's hands.
A man on the clock, they called him Amos Moses.
Sirocco is moody and atmospheric, while Dance to Your Daddy is pure tongue-in-cheek mischief. Throughout, the band sounds tighter than ever, with production that allows each instrument and Harvey's larger-than-life voice to shine through. Now, compared to their earlier work, SAHB Stories is a little more conventional, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It felt like the band, at long last, had found that balance between the madcap instincts and strong songwriting. It also turned out to be Harvey's last full studio album with the band, before his temporary departure. Now, if they were going to bow out, this was a fine way to do it. Now, with Harvey gone, the rest of the band decided to soldier on, releasing Foreplay under the banner of SAHB without Alex. The title alone suggests they knew what they were up against. Without their charismatic frontman, the group shifted into perhaps more conventional territory, and Hugh McKenna stepped up as lead vocalist. Has to be said, the results were somewhat, well, mixed. Tracks like Pick It Up and Kick It, and Smouldering showed the band could write some tight radio-friendly rock songs, but something vital was missing. That eccentricity, the danger, the unpredictable spark. These were things that Harvey brought in spades, and without him, the band felt perhaps, well, definitely more anonymous. That said, though, it's not really a bad album, and in fact, if it had been released under a different name, it might have been better received as a perfectly respectable hard rock effort. But compared to that wild circus of SAHB's classic years, Foreplay is simply too safe. It's a fascinating what-if in the band's history, but ultimately a reminder of just how crucial Alex himself was to the whole enterprise. So in 1978, Harvey rejoined for one last ride, and the result was Rock Drill. Now by this point, the band were fraying. Hugh McKenna was gone, and he'd been replaced by Tommy Eyre, and the tensions were just bubbling beneath the surface all over. Yet against the odds, the album contains some of their boldest, really most ambitious material. The title track is a sprawling, multi-part suite that leans into industrial imagery.
They're making zebra crossings where the antelope did roam.
With the band sounding heavier and darker than really ever before. The Dolphins, lush and emotional, offers a rare glimpse of Harvey at his most tender.
We watch the dolphin swimming.
And guitarist Zal Clemenson later described it as one of their finest moments. Elsewhere, King Kong throws in unexpected strings. Buoyed incorporates Scottish pipes. And Mrs. Blackhouse veers off into country pastiche.
Can you hear us
It's messy, but gloriously so. Rock drill was far from perfect. The production sometimes overreached, and not every experiment worked. But what it did do, it proved that even at the end, SAHB were willing to take risks that most bands wouldn't dare. It's a fractured, fascinating coda to their career with Harvey. That last burst of creativity before everything finally fell apart. And from that raw chaos of Framed to the sprawling ambition of rock drill, the sensational Alex Harvey Band carved out one of the most eccentric discographies in 1970s rock. They were never the biggest band of the time, but they were among the most original, constantly blurring that line between rock concert and theatre performance, between parody and sincerity. Alex Harvey himself was the glue, that wild card, the joker in the pack. Without him, the band were good, but with him, they were sensational. Now, listening to these albums today, it's like stepping into a circus tent where you're never really quite sure what will happen next. Sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes it's unsettling, but often it's just brilliant. And that's exactly how Alex Harvey wanted it. Now let me know your favourite album in the comments, as well as any other full discography you'd like me to feature. Check out the description to this video for additional information, as well as any links to buy any of the albums not yet in your collections. Watch this video next on a reaction I did to one of his most famous tracks next, and I'll see you over there.